everybody? Welcome into the Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone. Perfect timing, guys. It's not every day that we get to come into the office and talk about something that is as it will have so many implications as it does the Myles Garrett trade request. Obviously, we have to start with that. We're going to, but before we dive in, I always have to say Happy Taco Tuesday, fellas. Jack, Nick,
Tuesday.
how are we feeling on this wonderful Myles Garrett trade? Post not even 24 hours removed from the news. Have we absorbed it? Have we wrapped it all in? Do we understand what it potentially will mean for this franchise as we watch the best player since 1999 will no longer probably be a Cleveland Brown?
Yeah, I mean, there's a classic phrase that's you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. I would say a pretty stupid game to play would be signing a 29-time serial sexual predator to a $230 million guaranteed contract, and some of the stupid prizes that could come out of that include, but are not limited to, losing 3+ first-round picks, Myles Garrett, Baker Mayfield, your playoff core, etc., etc. So, yeah, you got everything you deserved, Andrew, Jimmy, whoever. Hope you're happy.
Wow. All right, Nick, how you feeling, buddy?
Yeah, going through the stages of grief this morning. That's kind of the theme.
Were you at anger or denial?
Anger or denial, Nick? Are you past those two?
I'm at anger.
I don't know the denial of it. I think Jack's at anger. What are like the actual stages of grief?
I believe it's denial.
I'll look it up.
Denial, anger, bargaining.
Denial, because I knew that this was.
I think it's denial, anger, bargaining, grief, acceptance.
I'm pretty close.
No, okay, so yeah, it's denial, anger, bargaining, depression / grief, and acceptance. So where are we all
spot
at?
On. I would say
you're perfect.
I'm all the way to acceptance, honestly. Honest to God, I'm already at acceptance. That's how quick it was, because this was, while you thought there was a chance that Myles Garrett would be okay with being, the highest non-paid quarterback in the NFL, he values his legacy, it seems, more than money, and I can't blame him. In fact, I wish more athletes did so, looking at the MLB. But what it comes down to is he wants to go win championships. I believe the exact wording in his letter was, I got it right here. The goal was to, which take it for what you will if you think this was a shot at Andrew Berry. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete and win a Super Bowl. He says he doesn't want to be complacent. Nick, shot or not at Andrew Berry, is this undeniably a shot?
It's undeniably a shot. And I'll be honest, that's the part about the entire thing that I'm a little bit confused by. Andrew Berry has his flaws as a general manager, and they're well documented. The fact that he's unable to draft a wide receiver, the fact that he, had his hand in this Deshaun Watson thing and now could be the guy that trades away Myles Garrett. There's no doubt that he has his flaws. But the one thing that you could always say about Andrew Berry is he is always, from day one as taking the job in Cleveland, done right by his players. Dating all the way back to Odell Beckham Jr., which is not a trade that he made. That was a headache that he acquired. He let him out of that contract. He let Odell walk to the Rams for his Bitcoin contract. Then Baker Mayfield burned the bridge in Cleveland. Andrew Berry did the right thing by him. Carolina was Baker's preferred destination because that's where he was going to have the opportunity to start at quarterback. Even though it meant playing the Browns week 1, AB traded Baker to Carolina. He's always done right by the players. And it was a compliment that AB gave Myles. And maybe it was Myles is upset because Andrew Berry ignored his trade request when he said that, we envision a straight path from Cleveland to Canton. I just don't really get why you need to throw that back in Berry's face. Like, that was a compliment. Why need to throw that back in his face? It was definitely a shot.
I think he deserves it. I think Andrew Berry deserves it, and whatever else is coming his way, Nick, because if you think about it, and I understand how hard it is to be a GM, to draft, to make trades, to analyze players and whatever. Let's take the three of us, for example. Me, Ryan, Nick, guys who maybe know a tiny bit more about football than your average Joe, but not a ton, right? If we took over the organization as a triumvirate of co-general managers the day after we lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, can you sit here and confidently tell me that we would be in a worse position right now than we actually are in real life? Because I think that tells you all you need to know about how bad of a job Andrew Berry's done.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can still have a sense of defense for Andrew Berry, whether or not you believe it was truly Haslam who made them go all in for this. But at the end of the day, we know it's a results-based league. Andrew Berry was the GM for two of the biggest moments of the Browns post-1999 in a negative way. One, You were the GM when you gave a guaranteed $230 million contract to Deshaun Watson and all the draft capital and all the BS that came with him because it turns out he's a giant piece of crap. 2, you were the GM of the Cleveland Browns when you lost, now potentially will lose, or at least he requests a trade, the best player this organization has seen since 1999. Not only that, but somebody who has become so entrenched in Northeast Ohio. You mentioned he's a minority owner of the Cavs, probably one of, if not the most beloved athletes in general in the Cleveland area, and in really the NFL, outside of like maybe Jose, Nick Chubb, right? But Myles Garrett is up there at the top. He's become such a part of the Browns culture, the organization, and at times when the Browns have absolutely sucked, he's been the one shining light. And now he wants out of Cleveland, and you can't even sit here and fault the guy because he's been here for 8-9 years now. He's given it all he has. He never took breaks. Well, actually, some people say he would, but that's besides the point. Is he's gave everything and more to this organization when they took a swing on him first overall back in 2017, and you haven't given him anything outside of one playoff win, right? So you can't blame the guy. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, I guess I'll play devil's advocate a little bit here. And the Browns have stood by Myles Garrett through some bull crap as well. You know, the Browns stood by Myles Garrett after he assaulted someone on the football field. And that was not only the biggest story in sports, that was the biggest story in news the day after the Mason Rudolph incident. The Browns stood by him immediately following that game. Immediately the day after, the Haslam family released a statement saying that they support Myles and that they were going to work with the league in the investigation, and whatever happened was going to happen. Then the car collision, and all the craziness that we went through with that. Like, they stood with Myles through some stuff. Through some bull junk, as Deion Sanders would say. So he's, and he, has a tendency of being a little bit of a, me first guy. He was so fascinated with winning Defensive Player of the Year, that consumed him his first 7 years in the league, where maybe his first 7 years in the league, the goal should have been the Super Bowl and not winning a Defensive Player of the Year. Okay, now I'm ready to go win a Super Bowl and do it with a different organization. I'm not trying to put the blame or the onus on Myles here. I'm just saying that everyone deserves a piece of the blame pie, if you will, on why this thing didn't work. And also, it's early. Like, this is just a trade request. The Browns are saying publicly that they're not going to honor that trade request. If they do trade him, there are some pretty serious cap ramifications in terms of over $30 million more in dead cap space. I think people want to get their jabs in at Andrew Berry. People want to get their jabs in at the organization. But this is something that's gonna drag out. Like, this is something that's not going to be resolved by the end of today. And we'll be talking about the resolution on Wednesday's edition of The Big Factor. Like, this is going to take some time.
I wanted you to get your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think there's a scenario that maybe Myles requested this trade like a month or two ago, and then since the Browns said that they weren't going to trade him, he decided to make it public? Because obviously by going public with it, you hurt the Browns, you hurt their leverage. Myles, even if he's not a team-first guy, doesn't seem like the kind of guy who wants to screw everyone on the way out the door. Do you think this was his last resort to get out of Cleveland, possibly?
I think it's very possible that he made it public that he was going to consider the Browns' future plans, most notably quarterback, when he makes his decision. I think it's very plausible that he met with Andrew Berry. They laid out a potential plan, and Myles wasn't feeling it. He didn't think it was good enough that in the next 2-3 years, when he's going to be exiting his prime, because let's be honest, 29, like, he's a DN. They don't last forever in this league. He thought that his best opportunity is to now go elsewhere, and money may not be a priority.
It may not be, but it also may. This also could be a very big leverage thing where we're talking about. This is a guy that's 29 years old. He is close friends with Von Miller, who has done a great job securing paydays throughout his career and kind of worked his way out of Denver, got to the Rams, won a Super Bowl, and then got another massive paycheck from the Buffalo Bills. So I do think all of this was calculated. We know for sure, Jack, to answer your question, that the Browns did have a heads up. I don't know when the trade request request was actually made, what if it was a month ago, if it was a couple of weeks ago, they definitely knew that there was a trade request and that they didn't plan on honoring it. And yeah, he decided to make it public because that's what he thought was in his best interest. But it only benefits the Browns right now too, to be dug in and to say that we're not going to trade him, because that helps other teams increase their offers. And Myles, you don't have much leverage. Like, your option here is either to come back to Cleveland and play under contract, hope and pray that you get, you get traded and paid somewhere else, or, hang up the cleats. And I don't think he's going to be hanging up the cleats and retiring over this. So his option is going to be either to get traded or to come back to Cleveland. He doesn't have a whole lot of leverage here.
And Nick, you alluded to it. This will not be something that will be resolved quickly, because I believe the numbers are, if you trade him post June 1st, you are looking at $36 million. If you wait post June 1st, it goes down to, I believe it's $14 million. But at that point, you can't acquire picks in this year's draft. So you're looking at capital for the 2026 draft, which is still very valuable, but that's what makes the situation sticky. The Browns have a game to play. As you said, I mean, we've seen players sit out due to contract disputes, being wanted to be traded. And can it work out for both sides? Yes, but unless I'm mistaken, in recent memory, I feel as though often it harms the player much more than it harms the organization. I think of Le'Veon Bell's, like trying to go back Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley holdouts, stuff like that. I think oftentimes you end up seeing the ramifications be greater on the player than the organization.
Chris Jones is the only name I can think of where they sat out and ended up coming back to their team and performing at any semblance of a high level.
And what happened that year was, they lost week 1 to the Lions. They were like, we got to get this guy back in the NRT line. And they brought him back. And what they do, they went and won the Super Bowl that year.
Well, how about for the Browns? I think it must have been like around COVID when David Njoku had his trade request. Did we just not honor it, or did he go back on it at some point in time? I don't really remember how that went down.
Didn't honor it, and then they extended him. So that's another piece of this too, is people are saying, and I genuinely believe Myles wants to win. Like, that's at the forefront of all of this, is that he wants to win. But I'm not sleeping on the fact that he wants paid too. That's going to be a nice extension that could happen this summer that would assure him 5 more years, into his mid-30s, that he was going to be paid as a top edge rusher in the NFL. Like, I think the money aspect has a little bit to do with this entire thing.
Yeah, before we take a break, I want to read these. I asked people how you feel about Myles Garrett trade request in 4 words. So far, pack your dinosaur jammies. Oh shit, god damn it. Hand for Dixon's voice, and bleep, 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 bleep. Thanks, APJ. All right, we got to take a break. When we get back, though, it might be perfect timing for the Browns. Shedeur Sanders recognizes some Browns fans who stood outside of Huntington Bank Field yesterday in protest of this just atrocious stain that is the Cleveland Browns organization. We're going to talk about that and more when we get back here on The Big Factor. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Factor here on the Big Play Sports Network. Ryan Tyler, Jack O'Rourke, Nick Padone. We're brought to you today and every day, of course, by our great friends at Fairway Ford in Ohio. Fairway Ford is the biggest Ford truck dealership in Ohio. They have the largest selection of Ford F-150s as well as Super Duty trucks, and I promise you they will not be beat on price by any other Ford dealers. Do not let a short drive to Canfield, Ohio prevent you from saving thousands, yes, that's thousands, on your new truck. Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, lowest pricing, as well as the same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayfordohio.com. That's fairwayfordohio.com. All right, guys, let's see. We are 2-ish and a half-ish, if my math's correct, April, to get to the NFL draft. We got some time, of course, to talk about that. But what does this mean? Myles Garrett requests a trade. What do the Browns do at 2? You think maybe they replace him or try to, at least with Abdul Carter. Do you go down the route of a quarterback? I know what you two want to do, and it got picked up a little bit. Shedeur Sanders yesterday on Twitter, legendary hashtag wrist up in response to Cleveland fans gathering around Huntington Bank Field in a rally to support Myles Garrett. We'll see what happens there, but they were shouting for Shedeur to come save the city of Cleveland. I know you two think he could be a savior, and I got to be honest, I'm opening myself up, my mind to Shedeur Sanders to Cleveland. Every day we get close to the draft and hanging around these two goons, it just becomes more realistic, and I'm open to the idea of Shedeur Sanders bringing his talents to the great Lake Erie.
I mean, man,
Jack, Ryan is starting to see the light, my friend.
Yep. Yes, he is. I mean, Nick, has there ever been a quarterback who wants to put on the brown and orange more than our man Shedeur Sanders right now? Like, I think back about Baker Mayfield doing the Brett Favre. That gets me excited. This puts me right in the same boat. I didn't see Shedeur put out any tweets for all the Daniel Jones protests going on, but on a day where the whole entire country just went ahead and shit on the city of Cleveland, you saw Kofi Kingston on Monday Night Raw yelling out about how he wants to leave Cleveland, just like Myles Garrett to all the WWE fans in Cleveland. You got the protests where the national laughingstock, and suddenly the bad signal shines. Shedeur Sanders hears that everyone in Cleveland is putting the hashtag wrists up, and man, does he want to be in Cleveland, and man, does it feel good.
Yeah,
I think we could officially put the narrative to bed that Coach Prime won't let Shedeur play in Cleveland, that the Sanders don't want anything to do with the Browns. And it's similar to the Baker Mayfield thing, is you need somebody a little bit nuts if they're going to be the franchise quarterback here. Like, to survive here and survive in Cleveland with these fans where, you know, if you throw one interception, they're going to be chanting for the backup. You need to be wired a little bit differently. And Shedeur Sanders is definitely wired differently. He's, you know, used to the spotlight. And I think Browns fans kind of, it was almost a little beacon of hope when he tweeted that out this morning, you know, that he acknowledged the Browns fans that are chanting, you know, for Shedeur to come save us, which is a bizarre line to say. I don't think that's going to be something that happens, you know, quickly. I think we're, you know, in for a little bit of a rebuild here, whether it's with Shedeur or without, but it was cool that he noticed it.
If Shedeur Sanders truly wants to Cleveland, come to Cleveland. I mean, come on down. That doesn't make sense. I never want a player again in Cleveland that doesn't want to be here. You've seen what happens. OBJ, Deshaun Watson never wanted to be here. Don't forget that Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam were the only ones willing to give him $230 million guaranteed so he could pay off all his damn lawsuits. He never wanted to come to Cleveland until that money was fully guaranteed. If Shedeur Sanders looks at the Browns as an organization that has failed completely in the quarterback position, and he wants to be the one that has the kahunas to come into Cleveland, change this whole narrative and culture, man, I'm all for it. And what better than Shedeur Sanders, a guy who's been in the spotlight, a guy who, by the way, went to Colorado. He didn't go to some Big Ten, some SEC school to be the leader of a big program. No, he went to Colorado to change things around. Of course, his dad being there, I'm sure, was a big factor, of course. But the point remains the same, is he went to a lower school and completely changed that program. Success aside, I understand you didn't necessarily win many big games, but you went from being one of the worst FBS teams to being a recognizable, legit program again. And you think of quarterbacks, I mean, Josh Allen, Wyoming, Patrick Mahomes, Texas Tech. They don't need to be going to some great school. And often, in fact, when I think of successful NFL quarterbacks, most of the time, they didn't go to a giant school in Alabama, and Ohio State, at Georgia. No, they went to some other school. And
Jordan Love lost to Utah. Jordan Love and Utah State lost to Kent State in a bowl game.
Yeah. I mean,
and they turned around the Packers right after Aaron Rodgers blew everything up.
And people will talk about all day long, oh, this quarterback class sucks. You had a great quarterback class last year. No, and you don't know what it's going to be. and did you like that or something?
I'll talk to you in the break.
It was good.
Okay. And my point being, and I've said this on Matt Fontana's show a million times, if you don't have a quarterback, you're pissing into the wind and it's coming back and splashing you in the face. And rather than being, oh, take the best player available, sure, I get it. But what happens when you have a casting crew of great players, a la Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, all these guys, right? If you don't have a quarterback, well, you see what happens. The rebuild fails, and now you're going to cycle back into it. Why don't you go find out first if you can find a quarterback, and then start getting these best players available? Because if it fails, well, guess what? You're going to be in the same position you are now, drafting a quarterback high next year, and you're going to be doing this whole charade yet again.
Ryan, you hit the nail on the head because Shedeur Sanders is a guy who's been doubted at every single turn, and he's always put himself or been placed into situations where he was not expected to succeed or thrive. I mean, the guy's a 4-star coming out of high school. People are like, oh, he only got that because of his dad. He's not that good. He played in the middle of nowhere. He goes to an HBCU. Oh, this guy's not going to go to the NFL. He's played at an HBCU. He just wants the payday in college because he knows he's not that good. Oh, he's going to go to Colorado. Oh, this shit show, 1-11, turns them around. There's not a guy who's better to come to Cleveland, who's been in more situations like this, who Nick said earlier, alluded to it, has so used to the stardom and the high expectations. It just makes so much sense for the Cleveland Browns to go after this guy, in my opinion.
There's only one team that could screw up the whole thing, and that's the Tennessee Titans. And ironically, that's the team that he hasn't said anything about. You know, he's showed the Giants a ton of love. I think that would probably be his preferred destination, if we're being honest, is New York and the Big Apple. Talk about a big stage and a big spotlight and big expectations there. But I mean, he's given the Browns now a couple, nods, and so is Prime. So I definitely think, the Browns, the Giants, 2 teams on his radar. I don't know what the Titans do at 1. It kind of dictates all this, though. Hey, and that's the one thing to remember.
If the Titans want to give us Cam Ward, I mean, I'm all for it. I would have no complaints saying it in that card.
Would it shock you guys if the Titans love nothing more? And I get that they just fired their GM and have a new GM. So this could be completely a moot point. They love overspending for mid players every single free agency. Like, they were aggressively trying to trade for JJ Watt back in the day. They got DeAndre Hopkins,
Calvin Ridley.
They paid Calvin Ridley. Like, they consistently
Tony Pollard.
do this every single offseason. It wouldn't shock me if Sam Darnold is this year's overpay. It's a guy that has some similar traits to Joe Burrow. That's obviously Brian Callahan's guy. There's a little bit of familiarity with the prototype, at least, of the quarterback there. What if they just overpay Sam Darnold, draft Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter 1, and then the Browns are going to have their pick of the litter at 2? That'd be my dream scenario.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of people would prefer that Andrew Berry isn't the one making that decisions with a group or a litter of picks that is. But I don't want. I'm just gonna say it. I don't want another nerd at quarterback. I don't want a Kirk Cousins, a Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, and I certainly don't want a sexual predator, Deshaun Watson. I want somebody with a little bit of swagger. I want some of that Baker Mayfield dog eat dog mentality, and I think Shedeur Sanders offers that.
Whoever it is, and it could be a guy like Joe Burrow has that mentality, and I don't think outwardly looking at him, you would think that that's a guy that has that within him. But that's something that's going to be required. That's a prerequisite of whoever is going to be the next quarterback, because you're going through a little bit of a mini rebuild here with whatever happens with Myles Garrett. There are holes still in this roster after the quarterback. So if they decide to go QB at 2, you need to be damn sure that it is actual dog in them and not just like a shield of this fake tough guy persona. And make sure that they are mentally tough enough to survive this little mini rebuild. And if they go 0, if they go 2 wins next year, that the fans aren't going to be chanting for somebody else.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Abdul Carter goes 1 or whoever goes 1 and the Browns have the pick of the litter for quarterbacks at 2, obviously I'm still Team Shedeur over Cam Ward, even if they're both available on the board. But Nick, another guy who I think has that dog in him, it would come later in the draft. I think Jackson Dart also has a bit of that Joe Burrow type of swag in him as well. I could see Uncle Jax making a move as well.
How about Kyle McCord?
I'll say this now.
Dude, Kyle McCord has swag. Kyle McCord has, dude, the video of him doing the 50 shots out the A. No, Kyle McCord has it. He has that it factor. Go Qs.
Will Howard has it too. I want to call my shot now on this. Because I know there's like so many Buckeye stands that are like, Will Howard's going to get drafted earlier than people expect. It's actually Jackson Dart. Yep. Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss could be a first-round pick, if not one of the first players off the board in the second round. Like, I think he's going to get drafted before Jalen Milroe. I think he'll be the 3rd quarterback selected. It'll be some iteration of Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and then Jackson Dart is going to firmly be 3rd. Like, he is going to probably ball out at the combine. He's got a big arm, and he's got all the traits.
My last point on Shedeur to Cleveland as well. Football skill aside, right, whatever, obviously that's most important. But after just going through this misery, this purgatory, this hell that was the Deshaun Watson experience, I want something young, new, exciting. And that's what Shedeur would offer to Cleveland on the Browns and just the city in general. I understand some people are hesitant about Deion Sanders getting involved. I think that's a bit overblown. We've never seen that in the NFL. Of course he's going to do that when he's coaching him, but listen, he's not going to be coaching him. Obviously he might be there, but I think that side's a bit overblown. I think it'd be super exciting and fun, and it would bring some hopefully magic back to Cleveland football, man.
Jack Ryan's seen the light, dude.
I really have.
Look at him sitting up here.
I drank some ayahuasca last night in my retreat cabin, and all I could see was Shedeur in brown and orange.
I'm so glad that
if you drank some ayahuasca last night, you wouldn't be in a mental state or position to be able to produce this show.
No, I'm just a dog.
Yeah,
I'm
you
different.
would just be drooling with perfect timing playing in the background for 45 minutes for the good people out there.
I'm built different. I'm like when Aaron Rodgers got Percocets. He's like, oh, my knee. I'm just built different. I'm on so many drugs right now.
I always think about that. Nick and I talked about this yesterday, but I love the edit on TikTok, if you've seen it, of Kevin Durant, and he's talking to David Letterman, and David Letterman's like, oh, so like you smoke marijuana. Like, when was the last time you smoked marijuana? And then he's like, I'm high right now. And then it's like it just cuts to the edit of him to a Future song. Hilarious video.
All right, well, I guess we're officially now we can be labeled a Shedeur show, I suppose. All right, well, we got to take another break. When we get back, I want to flip it to the NBA side. We talked a little bit about Luka to LA yesterday, but Nick certainly out of us three knows the most about basketball, so I want to talk to this about him when we get back. Stick around on The Big Factor. L.A. Luka is what they're calling him now. He doesn't look like $270 to me when he hopped off the plane, so that was a bit surprising there. Nick, where were you before we go into what this means? Where were you when you got the news, the Shams Charania bomb? What do they call it now? We don't got Woj bombs. Is it like a Shams?
Sham bomb.
Sham bomb? I like that. Okay, it's kind of stealing. I don't know if Woj owns the trademark to bomb.
Well, it rhymes, so sorry, Woj.
All right, Nick, where were you, brother? What did you initially thought, and what went through your head immediately when you read that?
It's a sham wow. How about that?
Sham wow.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I was sleeping. I was dead asleep. So I woke up to this. So I wasn't one that thought that it was fake because I had, got the ESPN notification. I had seen all the tweets, obviously, having Sham's notification on, and then Apple News, had a thing about it. So yeah, it was fully broken by the time that I woke up. What was that Sunday morning, probably at around like 6:45. Completely stunned. I still can't comprehend why the Mavericks did that. I think there has to be, my initial thought and my current thought are exactly the same. There has to be something more here to all of this. Like there's no way that they shipped him out because they thought he was fat. Like if you thought he was fat, like why wouldn't you just say, hey man, like, you're the Mavericks, you're the 8th seed. Like this year kind of is what it is, but like, hey, next year try to show up to training camp 15 pounds later. That's a very easy conversation to be had. Hire the guy, a nutritionist. This is a elite, perennial, 25-year-old generational talent. And for the Lakers, it's a no-brainer. The Lakers currently the 5 seed out there in the West. Like, I don't know if this makes them a finals favorite. I don't think this is a move for them for this year. Like, this sets them up beautifully to go from Kobe Bryant to LeBron James to Luka Doncic as the next great Laker, which is crazy that it cost them Anthony Davis and a first-round pick. Like, there just has to be something more to all of this that we don't know. And maybe it is this Mavericks GM who's a former executive at Nike is just one of the biggest egomaniacs on the planet and thought that was the only person on planet Earth that thought this was a good idea. But bizarre. I can't believe that the Mavericks did this trade, and not only did this trade, initiated this trade.
Did you guys see the conspiracy theory on the internet about this trade, about the new ownership group post-Cuban for the Mavericks who are apparently trying to put pressure on Texas to make their gambling laws more lenient? Have you guys seen that theory?
I have not.
No.
So there was this huge theory. I mean, it was gaining traction on Twitter too, that the post-Cuban ownership group really wanted to they either wanted to move the team to Vegas or find a way to get Texas to make their gambling laws way less strict. And this was some huge ploy in it, was the rumor going around on Twitter. I wasn't sure if you guys saw that or not.
How do those correlate?
I've heard Vegas is that this is a push for Las Vegas. I've seen that one.
How does that? I'm confused. How does that correlate?
And I always
Luka?
thought too that the Vegas team, when they talk about the NBA going to having a Vegas team, that was always going to come via expansion. It's going to be an expansion team in Vegas and one other market. I don't think they would move the Mavs, who have a championship in the last, a little bit over a decade, have Dirk Nowitzki, who's a top 75 player all time. I don't know. I don't buy into the conspiracies. I think this was a completely short-sighted move by an egomaniac GM that made a massive blunder.
Yeah, from what I understand is the Mavericks, they weren't quite willing to give Luka the Supermax extension, the 5-year, $400 million, whether it was mainly due to concerns with conditioning, whether they didn't think he was all that good, which is a crazy thing to say. And they thought getting an elite rim protector in Anthony Davis with Kyrie Irving right now is their best chance to win a national championship, to win a NBA championship in the next 2 years. And if you're the Lakers, you're looking at life post LeBron. You're getting a superstar that would thrive in the LA market like they always do. And yeah, that's pretty much all I can make of it. Short-sighted is a good word to use for the Mavericks. We'll see if it works out, but in terms of most shocking trades I can remember, I mean, this is up there, if not number one.
How much international money are the Mavericks going to lose from this? From not having a million Luka jerseys in that country? It's a terrible move for them financially too.
I guess, yeah. I guess
they lost Europe. It's a whole continent.
I mean, dude, so say the thing that was out there is true, and I don't think it is. We all saw the video of Luka getting off that plane, and he didn't look to be 270 pounds. But say that it was, and that he was pushing 270. Okay, he dragged your asses to the NBA Finals last year. He got past Anthony Edwards, who was on an absolute insanity tear, and nobody thought the Kyrie and Luka pairing would work. If anything, it's the only guy since LeBron James that has gotten Kyrie to shut up, and it actually has worked. I just can't see any possible way that this made any sort of sense unless there was something big that happened behind the scenes. And maybe they're trying to cover up. Maybe Luka told them, I'm not interested in signing the Supermax. I'm not interested in doing this. And they work something out. I don't want this to be public. I love Dallas. I don't know what the particulars are, but right now, and again, we're now 3 days removed, none of this still makes any sense.
I believe I read that, and this is X, take it for what you will, that I believe it was Channing Parsons that said Luka was in tears when he heard about this trade.
Which that's true.
Oh, he just bought a house?
He just closed on a $15 million home in Dallas. And that just goes to show the surprise that this was, and vice versa. In LA, Anthony Davis had just closed on a $20-some million home too. So
can they just swap houses?
Really was a surprise to everybody. Shams Charania said that he thought his phone was hacked when he got these tags.
That's a perfect transition, because before we move on, I want to talk about this aspect of the trade. It was reported that LeBron was blindsided. And, that doesn't work with lay GM. We've never seen that before. And I understand he's at a point in his career where if you're the Lakers, as much of a clutch, no pun intended, as LeBron and his cast has around the NBA in terms of power, they felt they needed to make this move. And it didn't matter what LeBron had to say, because he is 40 years old, and they have to plan for life beyond him, because that's how multi-billionaire companies work. Am I buying that? I'm not sure. it would make sense from a business standpoint that you don't have LeBron's opinion on it, but we've never seen this before where LeBron was reportedly blindsided by a trade.
Ryan, the odds that on tomorrow's edition of The Big Factor that Sidney Thomas and Sydney Sweeney are sitting on my lap when the show starts at 10 a.m. are higher than LeBron James not knowing that this happened. There is zero chance on the planet that LeBron did not know that this was going on live as it was happening. Does anyone believe that he didn't know? LeGM, he had to have known.
I don't know, man. It's one of those.
Really?
I don't know. I don't like this. This time, I might actually believe him. Like just because it came out of nowhere.
That is the thing. Like, I didn't see one Luka trade rumor on Twitter in the year leading up to it.
No, there was nothing. I mean, like active NBA players thought Shams got hacked. Like Brian Windhorst said that his phone had never exploded the way that it did between like current NBA head coaches, executives, players. He said referees were texting him over this. Like nobody could believe that this was actually real. So I believe that LeBron didn't know. I'll say it. I don't think he knew.
Did you guys see it? The De'Aaron Fox tweeted like a brain blown emoji after it, and someone quoted him and was like, "Don't go to bed, you're next."
You're next.
You're next, bro.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just got to be that the Mavs know something about Max Christie that we don't. I think that could be what it is.
Yeah, that was the piece they were really after was Max Christie. I'm sure.
Could be.
I don't know.
Pelinka probably threw Max Christie into clearest conscience.
Yeah.
Just.
Very interesting trade, to say the least. It'll be interesting to see how Luka and LeBron mesh. I'm excited. I believe he actually gets introduced as a Laker today at noon, so I'll certainly be tuning into that. But yeah, I mean, I'll end on this, guys. I'm trying to make a comparison of one of the biggest, shock value trades. I suppose it would be Kevin Durant to the Warriors, but that had steam. Right, that had some steam before it happened. This seemed to come completely out of nowhere. And if Shams Charania is shocked by a trade, you bet your ass everybody else in the world is.
I think it's like Gretzky getting. It's like Gretzky getting traded by the Oilers to the Kings.
All right,
I think
hockey
that's the
man. Okay, hockey man.
He's the greatest player of all time. So
I got one for you guys. Did Deshaun Watson trade the Browns?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was pretty shocked too.
He told everybody they were out of it. It was down to the Falcons, Carolina. One other team, like the Browns were the only team that were informed that it was a no. And then out of nowhere, a snap of a finger, that Adam Schefter thing dropped that in his words were in a shocking turn of events, the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson is willing to waive his no trade clause for the Cleveland Browns.
It's like that Interstellar meme where you just bang it on the window. No, no, no. And everything since then has been downhill for the Cleveland Browns. And I wish nothing but the worst for Deshaun Watson, honestly. And Jack, did you want to say something, or are we moving on?
Oh, no, I'm good.
All right, well, we got to take one more break. When we get back, guys, people just can't stop betting. I don't know what it is. If you do it, you're going to get caught. I don't care if you bet 1 penny. I don't care if you're transferring $10 million like Ipe Mizahara is. You're going to get caught. Well, not a player this time, but an MLB umpire is fired after he gets caught with some betting activity. We're going to talk about that and wrap up today's show on The Big Factor.
Ryan, I got to stay on business here for the hockey community. So just this past minute here, you ripped me for an okay hockey man about one of the trades. So you brought up, Ryan, you asked me here if there's any trades similar to this one in the history of our country, of the world. Wayne Gretzky, the best player in his sport of all time, at 27 years old, gets traded to Los Angeles, California, and you hit me with an okay hockey man. That's the closest trade ever.
You're right. I take back what I said. That was rude of me, Jack.
I appreciate it.
I presented a question.
And this is why we have a great relationship here on the Big
And you
Factory.
gave me an answer. I can admit my mistakes, unlike the Cleveland Browns. So I truly apologize. It won't happen again.
We got 3 guys here, full transparency, no egos in this locker room. And this is the closest thing you're going to get to Cleveland Cavaliers basketball on air.
No kidding. All right, we got to move on.
Big game tonight.
Yeah, it is big game tonight. Last story here on the Big Factor on this beautiful Taco Tuesday. MLB has fired umpire Pat Hoberg for what they said for quote sharing legal sports betting accounts with a friend who bet on baseball and for intentionally deleting messages key to the investigation in his conduct. MLB has said Hoberg adamantly denied betting on baseball directly or indirectly. Commissioner says there's no evidence, and Hoberg, he did say he admits he was wrong. He should have known better, but he stands by his claim that he never bet on baseball. This is just another latest part of a story of a betting epidemic in professional sports. Hoberg, best known for, I believe, his 2022 World Series game when he perfectly called every single ball strike. Jack, when will people finally get the point and learn that if you bet, even if it's the smallest amount, you're going to get caught and you're going to get repercussions?
Right, this is a weird time where I'm actually against the move that happened. Hoberg has been known for a long time as one of the best umpires in baseball, in a sport where how many times a summer do we bring up robot umpires? A million times, right? A sport dominated by the Cowboy Joe West, the CB Buckners, the Angel Hernandez is his name, I believe, correct, is the umpire.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's gone now. But
yeah, he's gone, but
he lives on in MLB lore forever.
Exactly, but the thing is, it's a sport where we constantly shit on how bad the umpires are. You have like 3 good umpires in the sport. Hoberg's one of them. Jordan Baker's the tall guy, I believe is his name. He's awesome. There's a finite amount of them. If you cannot prove to me that he was directly betting on the games himself, then why the hell are you firing him? Because he's one of the last things holding us back in our great sport, America's pastime, from using AI to call balls and strikes. But Ryan, you are correct to not even to a thing. You are totally correct. If you involve yourself in this, it's going to happen whether I like it or not. So yeah, you simply can't have a conjointed account with somebody else who is betting on the sport that you're the umpire of. It seems very, very simple, Ryan, but again, you're very right. People, Jonte Porter and co, cannot wrap their head around it.
Yeah, well, hey, who's to say that robot umps won't start betting on games when we implement those? You know what I mean?
Dude, what if AI started
when they gain a consciousness, they start dealing crypto on the black market and they throw MLB games?
Could happen. How about this, though? Like, if I was leading the investigation on this, I think it would be a pretty easy investigation to lead, because I would just look at everybody in the room and I would be like, how many of your guys' friends have the password to your DraftKings account? And the answer is probably 0. Like my buddies, I can at least tell you guys, for me, like, my friends don't have any access to any of my betting apps. So there's that.
Jack, do you or something?
I not personally, but I can say that I have multiple friends, as in there are multiple groups of 2 people that I know who have conjointed gambling accounts and bet together. And from my limited experience of watching them interact and decide what they are making picks on, there is a 1,000,000% chance that Hoberg and whoever he was with were in cahoots, because those conjointed
what's going on.
Conjointed betting accounts, I know a couple people who are on those. Every single pick that is going in, you both know about. So I am positive that Hoberg knew everything that was going in on the slip.
Fair enough. Hey, I don't have a problem if Hoberg was just trying to throw together a parlay and get some cash, but you know the rules are the rules when you're in that position and you can directly affect the outcomes of games. It's a no-brainer. You can't gamble.
But here's my thought, though. I would like to know, and I'm sure they could go back and look at this, if he's the home plate umpire, 1,000,000%. Yeah, you cannot have any money on the game. But let's be honest. If he's the third base umpire, even if he's the crew chief, what the hell's the third base umpire doing? He's calling like 3 or 4 balls, fair or foul. That can go to replay, I believe, if need be. Yeah. And he's making a couple of
safer out,
which can also go to replay. So if he's at third base, he's basically the Tony Snell of the umpiring crew. What the hell does he know about if anything is going to happen on the game?
A Tony Snell pull today.
Or like in the postseason, what if he's like the left field or the right field umpire? You know, I mean, he doesn't have any control of what's going on in the game.
They just gotta make it. It's like the Jonte Porter thing a little bit. Obviously, much different though. They just got to make an example. You know, So like this is the first time that it's happened to an umpire. So even though he vehemently denies it, it was one of his buddies that has a joint account. Like, even if that is true, say all of this is true and he genuinely didn't do anything, it's just like that's they're going to make an example out of you because you were the first one to even get close to being caught.
Well, Fred Hoiberg is open to work on LinkedIn now. Good luck to him on finding a new job. Thankfully, we're not on LinkedIn, #open to work. That's a good sign. All right, thank you, everybody, for tuning in today's episode for The Big Factor. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same people. Peace out, everybody.